Hi there, Surekha. So, your last essays, your last task ones, let's get straight into them. The line graph by IMF World Bank shows total member income in US billions over the years 1990 to 2000. Okay, I would have phrased this a little differently. Just something like the line graph provided shows IMF World Bank total member income in US billions. It just makes a little more sense. Okay, so that's the first thing. Then, in 1990, the total member income was just over 120,000. Okay, fine. This has gradually risen to about 175,000 in 1997 and remained stable until 2000. Okay, I like this, that you've basically provided a connection between these two sentences using the word this. However, this tense is wrong. It just needs to be simple past. When we're talking about years that are in the past, there's no connection to the present, so it must be simple past. Okay, and I like the vocabulary though. Gradually risen and remain stable are good vocabulary. However, when I look at this line graph, I would not say that the figures gradually rose. I mean, if you look at those years between 1993 and 1997, that's a huge increase. It's like a huge, it skyrocketed essentially. So while I like the vocabulary you used, I wouldn't say that it is necessarily accurate. All right, I don't think that that's a gradual rise. Okay, there was a slight dip in 1999. This is a little strange to me. I wouldn't even have mentioned it. And it's kind of strange because you're talking about 1997 to 2000, then you're mentioning this dip, which is really negligible. I wouldn't even have mentioned it at all. Okay, then, during this 10-year period, the total income has increased by 50%. Okay, again, no present perfect here. Okay, so yeah, this sentence really is more of a problem now that I look at it, because this makes sense, and then if you connect it to the following sentence, the one that starts with during, it makes sense, but this, I just think it needs to go. The highest income was in year 1997. Between 1990 to 1993, there was a small increase in income, around 10%, whereas, you didn't need a comma here, since 1993 to 1997, this should be from, by the way, the income increased the most, nearly 40%. All right, this sentence again just seems a little strange to me. The highest income was in 1997. It's just very disjointed. Like it's kind of like you're just jumping all over the place. Do you know what I mean? It's like you're talking about 1990 and then 2000. Then all of a sudden you mention 1999. And then you mention 1997. And then you go back to 1990 and 1993. It's just very disjointed. So when you see a line graph like this, or when you see something that's chronological like this, try to take it chronologically. The things that you want to pinpoint, of course, are those high points, those low points, those things of interest. But try not to jump around so much in terms of, your chronology. I hope that makes sense. Okay, let's see. So fine, and then you're done. Okay, then it just suddenly stops. Let's see. Okay, so what I would have done here, Surekha, is, we're looking at it together now. Obviously, I would have broken it down into different points. So I would have started with 1990, and then I would have described, from 1990 to 1993. Then, from 1993, I would have gone to 1997. This is a very steep rise. It's a very steep increase, okay? And then I would have described what happened between 1997 to 2000, where it remained relatively stable, okay? And then you don't even have to go into the details about that little glitch in 1999. But that's what I mean by kind of discussing it chronologically. And then giving figures. So I think this is an interesting figure to give. This is an interesting figure to give right here. This, of course, is an interesting figure, and this one. So basically we're talking about 1, 2, 3, 4 figures that absolutely need to be in this, because those are the main points. And then, like I said, you were missing an overview. So That's a big deal. You have to tell the examiner. A lot of people say put it after the introduction. Other people say put it at the end. I'm always a big fan of putting it right after your introduction. This way, if you do run out of time, at least you've made sure that you have included it. So, but you did need to say something about the overall trend. So something like over the 10-year period, like you should really delineate like what it is with a word like clearly or overall. So something like clearly over the 10-year period, income from the member countries increased by 55,000 or increased dramatically, something like that. Okay, so I hope that is helpful. Let's take a look at your second task one. All right, and here we are now on your second task one. The second illustration is a pie chart representation of global exports in 2000 by IMF World Bank. Okay, fine. The pie chart shows the global market share exports for 9 different regions. Okay, fine. Bensland, Andyland, and Jamesland make up for more than half of total exports. Okay. Bensland and Jamesland are almost similar with nearly 90,000. Let's take a look at it. Okay, so that's fine. Bensland has the largest share of exports, whereas Peterland has the least share of exports with only 10,000. Timland, Joeland, and Fredland each have just over 50,000. Okay, so Surekha, I just did a word count, and this is 76 words. So this is half of the words that you need to be writing in your task one. Not only that, but you left out like 5 or 6 of the regions. I mean, that's considered pretty critical information. From what I could see, you mentioned, you mentioned 6 of the regions, but I mean, it's just not detailed enough, okay? This is the kind of thing, I mean, you only have really 9 things to talk about, so just talk about them all. I mean, this was appropriate, that was fine, okay? But then I really wanted to hear about all of them, really. I wanted to hear about the third highest was Andyland at 75,000. Similar figures were found for Timland. Who is this? This is Herbertland, Fredland, and Darrenland. Okay, so there, and you could give a range there. That would be great. So you could say something like, and they were between 47,000 and 56,000. Okay, and then of course you could mention the other 2 little figures, which are Joeland and Peterland, which were minor amounts at just around 11,000 each. But you do need to include that information. So since you missed 3 of these regions, you were really, really under length, but that's a big deal. And then again, you also didn't have an overview, okay? You didn't have that sort of summary statement, which gives the reader, gives the examiner, in this case, the general picture of what's happening in this chart, okay? So, remember to try to mention all of these. I mean, these are considered kind of important information, okay? And I'm not saying that you have to mention every single one of them with specific numbers, but you do at least have to refer to them at some point. And also, don't forget the overview, which shows that main trend, okay? The overall kind of thing that really sticks out. And then, give more details, like provide more information, because this was really, really under length. And like I said, there are 2 reasons that I can see for it. You missed 3 of the regions, you didn't have an overview, and these would really severely affect your score. Okay, so I wish you lots of luck on your test. From what I understand, it's tomorrow, so best of luck with it. I hope that this feedback today is really helpful. Especially regarding task 1, because I mean, these are really important elements to remember when you're taking the test tomorrow. So best of luck tomorrow, and please keep us updated on how you do.